What's good, everybody? The doctor's back, looking to go 4 for 4 with our 50-50 for today. Focus solely on NBA. We have the DFS portion, and we'll also talk about betting. So these will evolve and get better as this thing kind of morphs itself. Again, I'm just really kind of being able to hold myself accountable. I just want to look back at yesterday. The football part of it was really pretty easy to double up yesterday. Josh Allen getting 200. Ramondre Stevenson, as we talked about, if he didn't get there early, it would get interesting, but he did enough. At the end of the first half was key for him getting to 50 yards. He had a nice little 14-yard run, so he only really needed 14 yards in the second half, and he barely got it, but that's what the game script does sometimes when you're playing a team like Buffalo. So, and then obviously the game was nowhere near 63 and a half, and Buffalo had no problem winning, let alone covering 10 and a half. So you could see there was cushion in there to come down off of the 10 and a half and still feel good about what you were doing. So again, what I do versus what you do may look different, but again, I'm just trying to focus on, hey, are we in the right neighborhood in what we're doing? So again, just always bet responsibly. And again, these are just opinions and things that I'm sharing. You should always try to use your instincts in making your decisions. But so today I'm going to do it a little different because I actually have a social function. So this is earlier than normal because I want to get something out and really try to stay on top of it. But I'm kind of going to doing my research on the fly as I'm doing this. So going to kind of talk through what this is going to look like. Again, with the emphasis, anybody who does FanDuel, the lineups portion, looking at the prices and seeing if there's anything that we really want to prioritize and whatnot. And then if there's any really betting angles that we can take to really focus on what are the good strategies to doubling up. So with the first game, I have Miami at Boston. And for the first time in a long time, it doesn't really look like it looks like Miami is getting the tribe back. Looks like everyone that matters is going to play, including Jimmy Butler, Hero, the whole night. So they'll really be at full strength for the first time in weeks. Again, they're playing Boston again. You see a lot of this where teams play each other repetitively. It's kind of a post-COVID kind of thing that we've seen. So I expect this game to be more competitive and Miami to kind of hang around. Obviously, Boston at 18-4 is just really one of the better teams, in the league, and that they've done this without Robert Williams for most of the year, if not all of the year. So again, really tough team. So focusing first on the DFS portion of it, I really don't love any of the prices based upon everyone being at full health. Seems like everyone's price is based upon somebody being missing and having an uptick in usage. With everyone at full strength, there isn't anyone that I prioritize. If you played Jimmy Butler's first game back, obviously there may be a conditioning thing there, so I don't love that. Bam is too expensive. I think everyone's too expensive. So from a DFS perspective, I don't really love anybody on Miami. As far as betting props, again, I haven't looked, and again, this is me just kind of doing on the fly today. But there isn't anything I really want to attack from the Miami perspective and really feel good about. You can always do anything as it relates to lottery tickets, and to me, that would be in the form of maybe, I don't know, Jimmy Butler assist, but again, with him not playing minutes, I'm not in love with that. A couple threes for Tyler Hero, as part of your parlay, or maybe even Max Strus, even though he'll probably be coming off the bench. He'll probably get some run with the second unit and maybe get some threes up. But I don't love anything from Miami. On the Boston side, again, from a DFS perspective, they're all priced up. With the exception of maybe Al Horford, but he's just at that point right now where you can't prioritize him even at 5,400. Jaylen Brown at 8,100 does give you some kind of ceiling to surpass his 5x threshold. So I wouldn't get mad at anybody for playing Jaylen Brown, but nothing here that really stands out. So from a DFS perspective, from a betting perspective, Jason Tatum getting the 2 or 3 and 4 threes just as a thing. He does it. I still like his props in terms of scoring somewhere in the 20s, depending on what FanDuel, as a matter of fact, let's just kind of go there really quick, has for his scoring, right? This is going to be a competitive game. Obviously, Jimmy Butler is a better defender that's on the floor, so that kind of makes the job harder for everyone in Boston to some degree. I think him and Bam kind of unify them as a defense, but ultimately, minus 1,100 at 2 threes for Tatum. So I'm definitely feeling comfortable with 3 threes. I think that's a thing. He's a minus 290 for that. So again, that's not part of my double up, but I definitely want to have Jason Tatum in I'm always talking about betting on money. Him at home, He tends to shoot better. The ceiling is higher. So if you wanted, um, to really focus on that, I think that's where I would go. There's really nothing else from this game. The next game I'm looking at is Lakers at Milwaukee. Again, another team that's kind of getting healthy when we focus on Milwaukee, but also looks like the Lakers are pretty intact, with the exception of Schroeder. I think he had a baby, so he won't play today. So that'll be my boy Patrick Beverly, and they're playing. Everyone else looks like they're healthy for the Lakers, but similar to like Miami, when they're all there, their prices are. Listen, Anthony Davis has a ceiling all the time, no matter what his price is. Again, he's also very fragile, so he could leave the game early, all that. So I don't tend to put him in a lot of my safe bets. I just don't. He's not safe by no stretch. Now, what I would do is focus on LeBron. I always go to LeBron's rebounds because 4 or 5 is seems pretty solid, and usually get fairly decent odds. Again, within the conjunction of a a parlay, so it's part of the mix. And looking at it right now, so LeBron, yeah, see, I would definitely make so minus LeBron at 4.5 rebounds is definitely part of my safety. He'll be part of that. Um, and I do like that. But again, I don't really love anything else from a DFS perspective for the Lakers. And like I said, the props you could chase really are, I like, they're on the road. So, in Milwaukee, I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm not in love with anything. The Lakers are just too volatile for me. Again, from a safety perspective. And, again, you could always um, focus on certain LeBron or Anthony props if you wanted to. Maybe a LeBron, depending on what Russ assist props look like. On the Milwaukee side, they're getting Chris Middleton back today. Obviously, he shouldn't have a full workload, but you know, getting their piece of their big three back is big for them at home. That should be a nice emotional boost for them. But from a DFS perspective, again, pricing. Again, I played Giannis the other night. He surpassed his 60. I think that these big games. This is a prime time game. That's another thing to pay attention to. And when players lay on TV or national television, don't think that they don't know, especially ones that maybe not as accustomed to it for others. I mean, this is not a thing as much and more for LeBron anymore because he's done it a million times, but it's still a thing, and just pay attention to that. But you could always play Giannis on DFS. But price wise, nothing to really attack or stand out. And in terms of like safe. Again, Giannis rebound props right around 7 or 8 would be something I would be looking at to put in there. A lot of times, his price, his points ones are crazy. Um, it doesn't even start to even get remotely attractive to 23 or 24. So I haven't been going there because he can every once in a while go less than that. So that's all I really have from this game. Toronto, Brooklyn. Just really two Jekyll and Hyde teams for me. I'm not really. They're just volatile. Really, they're both about 500. Um, Achua's out for Toronto, and Simmons is still out for Brooklyn. Everyone else is still intact. So again, I would say, um, from a DFS perspective, looking at the prices, I don't really love anybody from Toronto. Just based on now, if Thad Young stays in the starting lineup, he's somebody. He's 4,900. But again, with everyone in there, I don't trust the minutes or the usage, so I don't even really love that. If I was going to play one Raptor, I know Scotty Barnes has been nice and he's down to 7,300. That's a price that's semi attractive, but even Pascal Siakam, this is going to be a game where he's going to probably have to score if they're going to be competitive with Brooklyn. So, and same with Van Fleet. Those are a couple of guys that I might throw in a tournament, Van Fleet and Siakam. And then to a lesser degree, Scotty Barnes as his price has come down, but nothing to really circle or make sure it's a priority. These are just kind of tournament plays. In terms of props, with them on the road, again, nothing that really stands out that I really want to attack. Again, enter at your own risk in that situation, but nothing. Van Fleet with a couple of threes sometimes gets interesting for me, but nothing else. These guys spread the ball around. They do a lot of different things. Kind of tough to trust. So, and in Brooklyn, who knows what's going to happen there? That game could have many different outcomes. Speaking of which, going to Brooklyn, obviously, Now, with them having Simmons and Durant out, there's more usage to go around. That's why I picked up on last game that they played the Kyrie Irving props, especially with his scoring. His price went up to 8,100 from 7,800, but he's still at a price right there. He's going to have to do things, so I still like him in DFS today. Um, and as well as obviously Durant is always in play, especially when he's picking up steals and blocks on FanDuel because it's so, if you get 2 steals and a block right there, that's 9 points. And so for him, getting over 53 takes him above the threshold of 5x. So you want 53 or more from a Durant, and he can get it. Just not something that I don't know that you necessarily want to 100% bank on, but it's definitely something in his range of outcomes. But I do like. I'm imagining Kyrie Irving props are still probably pretty good, along with Joe Harris threes. They're able to space the floor and get him open looks. He's a good shooter, so I think 2 threes is his floor. He can go as high as 4 with him. Seth Curry disappointed last time, but he's always in play with his 3 points. Props. So it's just a matter of how much he's going to be on the floor. So just be cautious with that. But that's really all from this game. Philly and Memphis. Memphis is favored. In terms of injuries, excuse me, it's the usual suspects, but the one thing with Philly is Tobias Harris, I think, is questionable. So it just depends on what kind of questionable, but it says game time decision. That's a thing. If he doesn't play, obviously, first of all, I don't love the matchup. Going into Memphis is not a fun place to go. They're a tough team. They're very cohesive. They play good defense. So I don't really love anyone, even with Harris. But without Harris, it's probably Daniel House will probably step in, Thibault, those guys. And again, nothing that stands out, but just know there's going to be additional, points and assists and stuff, shots to go around. Embiid's 11-5. I don't trust. I'm not interested right now. I need to see him get back to Joel Embiid status. When everyone was out, he was killing. He's just kind of like, very, basic, right? at 11-5, 25 and 10 doesn't do anything for me. So I still like the guards, Milton and Melton, at the prices that they're at. So there's definitely in play. Those are people that I would have in my pool because they're going to have to do a lot. Keep in mind, if you're a narrative person, DeAnthony Melton used to play for Memphis. So he's familiar with the building. I think this is his first time playing against them. So he'll probably have a little added motivation to play. But again, when you're playing against Ja Morant, that's not always the funnest. So I like Memphis at home. So if I was going to put something in here, I would be focusing on Memphis. Maybe even, again, getting some points at home, but getting a good number. I feel good about them winning the game or at least winning with a nice cushion. So that would put something like that as in terms of a safe bet. DFS-wise, Ja Morant at 9,900 I like on DFS on FanDuel. But everything else is just – the one tournament flyer you should we talked about the other night. Mitchell Robinson had a big game. I talked about him as somebody that you put in these big field tournaments because a lot of people aren't going to play him. It's volatile. It has a very low floor, but he got 15 points and 20 rebounds. So when that's in someone's DNA, you have to account for that depending on the matchup and scenarios. And this is one of those. Steven Adams hasn't been great lately, but when he's 5,300, it's a thing for me when it comes to tournaments and knowing that a lot of people won't play him, especially at home. He just, again, Embiid, not a great matchup, definitely potential for foul trouble, but, it worked out the other day with Mobley. Mobley had a great game. Actually, for DFS, it wasn't that great because they didn't play because they blew out Philly, so just keep that in mind. Again, props here. I'm not really seeing anything that really I want to grab. Again, I haven't studied the odds. Some of these people's weren't, but I just think as a default, Ja Morant scoring right in somewhere between that 24 to 27 range is pretty safe. Anything above that would be like a tournament type. Yeah, 24 to 26 I feel good about if you're getting a decent, then that you can mesh that in your safe lineup. Anything above that's too much for me. Same thing with like a Kyrie or Durant. If I can get Durant in this matchup 20 to 22, that's what I'm looking for as a safe. And Kyrie, 17 to 20, I feel pretty good about that. Everything above that to me is, tournament lottery type tickets. So, New Orleans and San Antonio. CJ McCollum is supposed to be back today. That's big for New Orleans because now you've got Zion and CJ. So you've got, some front court and back court prowess along with, Joe Val showed up last game. They still don't have Ingram and they don't have Herb Jones. So there's some additional usage. So you'll have Trey Murphy, probably Dyson Daniels starts. So when you look at that, that's something to, if CJ McCollum plays, then whether it be Najee Marshall or Dyson Daniels, there's some additional usage, but nothing to get super excited. But if McCollum doesn't play, then I'm really like looking at like Dyson Daniels. Trey Murphy's price went up to 5,700, so he's not as attractive, but he's still in play. And Zion is still a thing. Again, I don't think there's anybody on San Antonio that can stay with him. He should have a really good game, so I'm in on Zion. Zion props. And if CJ's in, then I like his assist props without Ingram. So, and him somewhere in the teens. I don't know that he'll be on a minutes like conditioning thing. Let's see, how many games did he really miss? He missed 4 games. So I don't think it's going to be dramatic. I mean, he played basketball 10 days ago, so maybe a little bit. So maybe kind of temper your expectations a little bit. Tough to predict Joe Val, very volatile, so I wouldn't be going there. But again, I'm in on Zion William and his props, and that's where I'm at with that. With San Antonio, Zach Collins, as long as he continues to start, his price went up a little bit to 5,600, but he's still in play for me. Ever since the Pirtle injury, he's put up a 32. And it's funny because his points, he's only got 18 minutes, but he put up 32 fantasy points, and he got 27 minutes on the start last game, but only put up 20 fantasy points in OKC. So, again, it's volatile, but it's still at a price that's, it's a buy for me. Nobody else. Vassell is, a guy. Him and Kelvin Johnson have usage. So, from DFS, Vassell, at 7K can be in play. I'm just not in love with their ceilings. I think the games that they have where they go above their 5x threshold is their ceiling. Like Vassell had 39 fantasy points. So at a 35, with a 35 being his 5x threshold, 39 is okay, but at the end of the day, it doesn't. I don't think he has the ability to go way past that on a regular basis. And again, New Orleans, solid team. They're not all together, but I don't think that this is a spot where anybody from San Antonio goes crazy. I think they'll be okay and maybe pay off their salaries, but nothing that goes way above that. So they're underdogs at home. Again, another situation where if you can get some New Orleans with some points, that's pretty safe to me, especially if CJ McCollum plays. So keep an eye on that. You're really going to want to be looking at your lineups if you're doing FanDuel with late swap. Certain situations we'll talk about later that really could open up doors to improve your lineup and get the edge on people who don't late swap. So Indiana, Utah. Again, let's look at looks like Halliburton's questionable, which is obviously a thing. Again, we just talked about late swap. If Halliburton doesn't play, that changes a lot, and it could be slate changing, right? Because you'll get a TJ McConnell with the presumed added workload, and he's at a price where it would suggest that he's almost a slam dunk, right? He was at 4,200. He would be like a must play for me, but you won't know that until you find out that Halliburton knew. So having a point guard slot or a guard slot open to swap out and make a change, and maybe even have one other spot open, you might have a lineup that is able to do that because that's important news. But that's all I really have for Indiana in terms of news. The prices, I think Buddy Hield at 6,200, especially if Halliburton doesn't play, he's going to be chucking. Turner will be chucking, but he's at 8K. He's a tournament play. Like he has a nice ceiling, so you could always put him in a tournament. He's not safe by no stretch of the imagination between foul trouble and just inconsistent. Matter of fact, you can just even look at that in his game logs. He had 19 fantasy points. The game before that, he had 45, 12, then 42, 56, 28. And all those scenarios pose different lineups and opportunities. So with Halliburton, it wouldn't be as exciting. If he didn't have Halliburton, then yeah, I think he probably gets more usage and will probably feel compelled to be a scorer, and he's more attractive to me at that point if for some reason that doesn't play. Jalen Smith, at 5,200, he definitely is somebody that he has forward and center. You have to keep that in mind, but isn't something I'm going to prioritize. But that's a good price. That's a buy for him. And that's really all I have for Indiana in terms of any of their props. Buddy Hield threes. I tend to feel good about him at 2, 3, 4 is more tournament or lottery kind of thing. And that's where and then obviously if Halliburton plays, his assist props are always, but it's tough to get a good, like, it's 10 before it even starts making impact. So again, continuing to try to go to the well, it gets a little scary, but he's been at 10 assists, like, it's been a thing for a while now. Matter of fact, yeah, I mean, it's 5, 6 straight, yeah, of 11 or more, or 10 or more. But again, that's something that you just got to be careful. It's very difficult to sustain that. So I think 8 is a much safer number, but I don't think you're. Last time I checked, the odds on 8 was like you might as well not even put it in there. So on the Utah side, again, here's a situation where I like them getting some points, especially if Halliburton doesn't play. If Halliburton doesn't play, I don't love Indiana at all to win the game, let alone keeping it close. So if you can get Utah, with some points at home, the only thing that they're missing still is no Mike Conley. I mean, that matters, right? They're missing Rudy Gay, but who cares because he's Rudy Gay. Um, Sexton's price still hasn't moved, so he's absolutely a priority on FanDuel at 5,100 at the shooting guard only position, but still, again, his usage has seen an uptick along with Clarkson at 6,600. Those are both prices that are buy. You need to make sure that you're getting some of these guys in their lineup to really kind of get to that. They finally moved Kelly Olynyk's price. He couldn't move from the 53, 54, 5,200 range, and he just kept surpassing that. The funny thing is, so he did a 34. So he's had 4 straight at 30 or more. So they finally put his price there where 30 is his 5x threshold. So again, not as attractive, but he's still in play. Lauri Markkanen has a ceiling. He's at 7,500, and it looks like he's kind of back to, uh, you know, again, nothing to prioritize though. Like the one to priority here is Sexton and Clarkson. Everyone else is just kind of in play, sprinkle in. Malik Beasley's price went down, so that's something to pay attention to. But with everyone pretty much healthy, I'm not going there too much. Props wise, again, I would be looking at the Clarkson and Sexton props. Just kind of looking at what they've been doing. Again, I haven't researched it to that degree today, so I'm just kind of giving you some guides on where to go. Houston and Phoenix. Again, here's a situation where you really like Phoenix with some points. They're double-digit favorites, but Houston always has that sneaky ability. But again, at the end of the day, they have reverse records, right? Houston's 5-16, Phoenix is 15-6, so they're almost inverse. But everyone's pretty healthy for the most part, with the exception of Jae'Sean Tate is a game time decision for Houston. So again, keep that in mind. Torrey Craig is out with the rest that have been out for a while. Paul's been out for a while. Cam Johnson and Jay Crowder. So you'll probably see somebody different. There's something called Ish Wainwright that plays for Phoenix. There's a chance he moves into the starting lineup, and if he does, just pay attention to it. I don't think it's anything that you have to. I think his season high in minutes is 20, and in that game he had 12 fantasy points. So I don't know a lot about him, admittedly, but he's definitely not something I'm paying attention to. What this tells me is Booker's got to do more, Ayton's got to do more, and I really like Cam Payne at 6K. I think if I'm prioritizing anything today on FanDuel at that price, 6K is nice for him. I think he gets an uptick in usage today, so Booker doesn't have to score 41 or 51. He scored 51 the other day at 65 fantasy points. So that's the kind of stuff. He's at 65 and 71 in his last 2 games, and against a team that doesn't play much defense. Now they bumped his price to 10,200. So 51 fantasy points is this floor now. So you got to be careful with that. Not something you're ever going to prioritize, but definitely something from a tournament perspective you can pay attention to. Even looking at someone like Kenyon Martin Jr. off their bench, if they're getting blown out, some of these bench guys might get some run. Terry Eason for Houston. But overall, a campaign is from a price a buy for me. And then just asterisks is next to like Ayton and or Booker for ceiling type games in the tournament, but that's about it. Props wise, again, Booker scoring. But again, study the odds, see what makes sense. But that's I'll be looking in that direction. And lastly, the Bulls are going to Golden State. So again, this is something I feel very safe with. I think that the Bulls have like again, another kind of Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing. But this isn't a building that I don't expect them necessarily to play very, very well in. They're 9-12 on the season now. The Warriors are not much better. They're a 500 team, but they're still Steph, Clay, and Dre. With Wiggins. So at home, I just think they're a different stratosphere. So I like Golden State a lot tonight. And again, if you can get them either plus some points at a good spot, or even maybe minus a couple, that's something I feel very safe about. Uh, and FanDuel wise, prices that stand out. Levine is still underpriced at 7,300. So pay attention to that. Um, DeRozan definitely has a ceiling, but he's kind of really in that. He's like seems to be right at the right price. So 40, 43, 44, 45 fantasy points is about where he goes. But he definitely has a ceiling. So I would definitely put him in the tournament category today as somebody. And Vujicic today is somebody that at 7,500, I think that it has a tournament. Like he could have one of those 18 and 14 games, with a couple assists and a couple blocks kind of thing. So just keep that in mind because Golden State does kind of have moments and days where you turn the ball over. So there's some steals and blocks to be had there. On the Golden State side, again, bet on money, right? Curry's money. FanDuel wise, price wise, Klay Thompson at 6K, I like. Nothing else that I really prioritize. Steph is 10-3. It's a tournament price, right? He has a ceiling. He can get 60 plus fantasy points, but again, I don't know that I'm betting on it or counting on it more times than not. But his 3-point props, him and Clay, Steph is money for 3. Definitely put that in there as your safe one, and then you can go as high as 5, obviously for your lottery ticket. Same thing with Clay. I think you'd like to think that 1 or 2 is his floor, and it kind of is. He just had that home. I definitely put 2 as his floor, and again, this is one of those days where I think the Splash Brothers can have a ball, and it becomes a little bit of a, it has a 237 total. That's one of the higher ones on the slate. So there's going to be some points scored. That's what Vegas says. So I tend to agree with that. So the Levines, the Currys, the Thompsons, the DeRozans, the expectation is that they do some things right. Same thing maybe to a lesser degree with Vujicic and like Andrew Wiggins. So definitely this is a game you want to definitely get some action in. And like I said, feel good about Golden State, their props, especially 3 points for the Splash Brothers. And that's it. Tomorrow I'll have like an in-depth for the Sunday slate, for the NFL slate, because Sunday morning I have some obligations before the game, so I won't be able to do anything. So I'll have all my research and I'll put a video out tomorrow that really focuses on doubling up on Sunday and just some things to pay attention to. Just really more for myself, but if anybody's watching this, then let's have some fun and make some money. All right. Happy Friday.